Hannah Cooper was a 30-year-old administrative assistant at a small community library in the quiet town of Windermere. She lived a simple life, one filled with soft routines, warm tea, and the comforting smell of old books. Her days were calm, predictable, and gentle, exactly the way she liked them. Her husband, Gregory Cooper, was 34 and worked as a technician for an electrical repair company. He was practical, steady, and usually easy to understand. Their marriage of 5 years was not luxurious, but it was warm, stable, and built on small daily joys. They shared slow breakfasts, evening walks, and conversations that drifted peacefully into the night. Every weekend, Gregory drove 2 hours to visit his mother's house in a nearby town. Hannah never questioned it. She trusted him completely. To her, Gregory had always been honest and reliable. The story begins in this gentle atmosphere, calm, secure, and seemingly unbroken. Before anything changed, Hannah and Gregory lived a life that many people would describe as ordinary, but to them, it was full of meaning. Every morning started the same way. Gregory would wake up earlier, boil water, and prepare a pot of hot tea. The scent drifted through their small kitchen, warm and comforting. Hannah would join him a few minutes later, quietly slicing fruit or warming bread for breakfast. These small moments felt like their own private ritual, a gentle beginning to each day. In the evenings, they often took slow walks around Windermere Lake. The water was calm, reflecting the golden light of sunset. They talked about simple things, work stories, new books, neighbors, future plans that did not need to be rushed. Their steps matched easily, as if their lives were moving forward at the same steady pace. At home, the two shared a love for reading. They would sit in the same room, each in a comfortable corner with a lamp glowing softly above. Hannah liked romance novels. Gregory preferred mystery. They didn't need many words. Just the shared silence was enough to make Hannah feel connected and safe. Their relationship was built on simplicity. Small gestures, honest conversations, and a sense of comfort that grew with every year. Gregory was thoughtful in ways that felt natural, remembering birthdays, cooking dinner when Hannah was tired, bringing flowers on ordinary days just to make her smile. To Hannah, these gestures were proof that she had found the right partner. She often told her friends she felt lucky, blessed even, to have a husband who cared so consistently. There was one routine that stood out. Every weekend, Gregory drove to another town to visit his mother. He stayed for 2 days and returned each Sunday night with a gentle smile and a calm voice. Everything seemed stable, peaceful, unshakable. A picture-perfect life, at least on the surface. The shift began on an ordinary Wednesday afternoon. Hannah had just finished organizing new books at the library when she remembered she had a few homemade cookies Gregory's mother loved. She thought it would be a nice surprise to send them ahead of the weekend. So she dialed the familiar number, expecting the warm voice she had always known. But instead, she heard confusion. "Hannah, dear. Gregory hasn't been here for months." The words sank into Hannah slowly, like ice spreading through her chest. She stood frozen, gripping the phone so tightly her knuckles turned white. She managed a small laugh, too soft, too breathless, and said perhaps there had been a misunderstanding. She ended the call quickly, thanking the older woman with a voice that didn't sound like hers. For a long moment, she simply stood there, staring at the bookshelves, feeling the world tilt. But she didn't confront Gregory that night. Something deep inside her told her to wait, to watch. And suddenly, all the tiny details she had ignored began to rearrange themselves into troubling patterns. Gregory avoided talking about his mother. Whenever Hannah asked how she was doing, he answered quickly, then changed the subject. On Friday evenings, he came home late, rushed to pack, and insisted on leaving immediately. His phone was always on silent the moment he stepped through the front door, something he claimed helped him relax after work. Hannah had never questioned these things before, because trust had always come naturally. But after the phone call, each detail felt heavier, sharper. The following Saturday, when she called him during his usual visit, he didn't answer. Not once. Not even after she tried 3, then 4 times. The silence on the other end felt louder than any alarm. A knot tightened in her stomach, fear, suspicion, heartbreak mixing into something suffocating. A week later, Hannah made a decision she never thought she would make in her life. She would follow him. Not to trap him, she told herself, but to understand. To finally know the truth her heart was terrified to face. That Friday, she waited until Gregory drove away, then got into her car and followed at a careful distance. She stayed far enough behind to avoid suspicion, but close enough not to lose sight of him. The drive stretched for more than an hour, each mile fueled by fear and determination. Instead of heading to his mother's town, Gregory turned into a place Hannah had never heard of, a small, quiet community called Riversend. She watched as he parked in front of a modest little house with a white fence and a garden full of toys. Her breath caught in her throat. Then Gregory stepped out of the car. A young woman, Elena, opened the door, smiling warmly. He walked up to her and wrapped his arms around her as if he had done it 1,000 times before. And then a little girl, no more than 2 years old, giggled as she ran outside, her tiny steps fast and excited. The child threw herself into Gregory's arms and called out a word that shattered Hannah's entire world. "Daddy." In that moment, the peaceful life Hannah thought she had collapsed completely. Hannah didn't confront Gregory immediately. She needed time to breathe, time to steady the storm inside her chest, time to gather the courage to face the truth she had witnessed with her own eyes. She waited until Sunday night, knowing he would return to Windermere like nothing had changed. Gregory came home just before midnight. He walked in with the same gentle smile he always used, the one she once believed without question. But tonight, she saw straight through it. "Hannah," he asked softly, "why are you still awake?" She didn't answer. She simply nodded toward the kitchen. "We need to talk." They sat at the small wooden table where they had shared countless breakfasts, whispered dreams, and laughed over silly mistakes. But tonight, the room felt cold, foreign, and unbearably quiet. Hannah took a slow breath, her hands trembling. "I followed you," she said. "I saw where you went this weekend." Gregory blinked, confused for half a second, then his expression tightened. "What are you talking about?" "I went to Riversend," she continued, her voice steady despite the pain. "I saw the house. I saw the woman. And I saw the child." Color drained from his face. For a moment, there was a dangerous silence, the kind that burns through the air. "I don't know what you think you saw," he muttered, jaw clenching. "You've been stressed, Hannah. You're overthinking. You should have trusted me." "Trusted you?" Her voice cracked. "She called you Daddy. Do you want to tell me that I imagined that too?" Gregory's anger flared, a desperate attempt to regain control. "You had no right to follow me. You invaded my privacy." But the moment she said the names, Elena, and the little girl, his facade shattered. His eyes flickered, then trembled, and finally lowered in defeat. The truth came spilling out, piece by painful piece. He had met Elena during a volunteer electrical repair project nearly 3 years ago. She was struggling with her home, her job, and her life, and Gregory kept returning to help. What began as kindness turned into affection, and affection became something far more dangerous. A secret relationship. A second life he built quietly, selfishly, while still coming home to Hannah as if nothing had changed. And the child, her tiny hands, her bright laugh, her innocent trust, was his daughter. Hannah listened as her heart broke piece by piece. Every word Gregory spoke felt like a blade twisting deeper. By the time he finished, there were no tears left in her, only devastation and numb disbelief. "You didn't just betray me," she whispered. "You built a whole family behind my back." Gregory reached out, but she pulled her hand away instantly. In one quiet, decisive motion, she removed her wedding ring. The small gold band felt heavier than ever before. She placed it on the kitchen table between them, like the final line she would never step back over. Then she stood up, walked to the bedroom, and packed a small suitcase. Just enough clothes. Just enough essentials. Nothing more. Gregory followed her to the doorway, eyes red, voice shaking. "Hannah, please, don't go." But she couldn't stay, not in a house filled with lies. With her suitcase in hand and a heart that felt like solid stone, she stepped out of the home they had built together, knowing that the life she once cherished had ended the moment she saw the truth in Riversend. Hannah spent her first nights at Rachel's small apartment on the east side of Windermere. Rachel insisted she stay as long as she needed, but even with the comfort of a friend close by, the world around Hannah felt strangely hollow. The first few days passed in a blur. She barely ate, pushing away the meals Rachel prepared. She couldn't sleep, lying awake until dawn, listening to the distant sound of cars on the street. At work, she could barely focus long enough to sort a shelf of books. People spoke to her, but their voices sounded distant, as if she were underwater. She felt like a shadow of herself. Guilt pressed on her chest. She wondered how she could have missed the signs, how she could have believed Gregory so completely, so blindly. Over and over, she replayed their years together, convincing herself she should have noticed something earlier, should have asked more questions, should have protected her own heart better. But gradually, with gentle conversations from Rachel and small moments of kindness from her co-workers, something inside her began to shift. One evening, Rachel sat beside her with 2 cups of warm tea and said, "You didn't fail. You trusted. That's not a mistake." Those words echoed in Hannah's mind long after the tea had gone cold. For the first time, she looked not at what she had lost, but at what she had given: time, effort, love, patience, often at the expense of her own needs. She realized she had poured so much of herself into the marriage that she had forgotten to protect the person she was outside of it. One quiet morning, she stood in front of the bathroom mirror, expecting to see the same broken expression she had grown used to. But something had changed. Her eyes, though tired, no longer looked weak. There was a steadiness there, a fragile strength, but strength nonetheless. The pain wasn't gone, but it no longer ruled her. In that moment, a small spark lit inside her, warm and determined. It was the first sign of hope. A gentle reminder that her life was still hers, and she wanted to live it for herself again. Hannah's healing didn't begin with a dramatic moment. It started quietly, almost invisibly, on a Tuesday afternoon when she passed by the Windermere Cultural Center on her way home from work. A poster on the door read, "Evening Art Class, Beginner's Welcome." She paused for a long time, staring at it. Something inside her whispered that she needed to do something for herself, something new, something that wasn't tied to her past. The following week, she signed up. At first, she felt out of place. Her hands shook slightly as she held the brush. But the gentle atmosphere of the class, the soft music in the room, and the calm guidance of the instructor slowly eased her nervousness. She wasn't good at painting, not yet, but she found comfort in every stroke, as if each color she placed on the canvas helped her rebuild a small part of herself. Around the same time, she began writing. What started as notes on her phone turned into short reflections she posted online. A simple English blog about books she loved, stories from the library, and small thoughts about healing. She didn't expect anyone to read it. But within a month, dozens of readers left warm comments. Some said her writing helped them feel less alone. Hearing that gave Hannah a sense of purpose she hadn't felt in months. One afternoon, she received a message from Miles Anderson, an old colleague from the library who had transferred to another branch. He had found her blog by accident and reached out to tell her how meaningful her posts were. They began chatting occasionally, nothing intense, nothing romantic, just 2 people supporting each other through the ups and downs of life. His kindness felt like a steady presence, a reminder that not all connections had to be complicated or painful. Bit by bit, Hannah's days became brighter. She rediscovered hobbies she had abandoned long ago: sketching, reading mystery novels, volunteering to read stories for children at the community library. Each activity added a layer of strength, a quiet resilience that grew inside her. 3 months passed, and one evening, Hannah received a message from Gregory asking to meet. She felt her heart tighten, not from fear, but from a familiar sadness she had learned to understand. She agreed to listen. They met at a small cafe near the river. Gregory looked worn and regretful. He apologized, his voice shaking, begging for another chance and insisting he could change everything if she returned. Hannah listened without anger. She felt no desire to punish him, no hatred. She simply felt done. And more importantly, she felt whole. When she finally spoke, her voice was calm and steady. She told him she had chosen to move forward with the divorce. Not because of revenge, and not because she wished him ill, but because she had learned something essential. Peace comes from within, not from holding on to someone who once broke you. As she left the cafe, the evening breeze brushed against her face, carrying the quiet promise of a new beginning. The sun was slowly setting over the river, casting a warm golden glow on the quiet town of Windermere. Hannah sat on her usual bench by the water, the same place she used to visit during the early days of her marriage. Back then, she often waited for Gregory to return from his weekend trips, never suspecting the truth. Now, she came here for a different reason, because the river reminded her of movement, of flowing forward, of life continuing no matter what storms passed through it. She watched the gentle ripples drift across the surface. For the first time in a long while, she felt calm. Not perfectly healed, not free from all scars, but steady, grounded in a kind of peace she had rebuilt with her own hands. She thought about her journey. From simple happiness to the first sting of suspicion. From shock to heartbreak. From lonely, sleepless nights to painful clarity. From realizing her worth to growing stronger day by day. It wasn't a story she ever wished to live, but it was one that shaped her. And now, sitting by the river, Hannah knew something important. Her life was not ending because her marriage had. She was stepping into a new chapter, one shaped by her choices, her healing, and her rediscovered strength. Looking at the soft colors of the sky, she whispered the lesson she had learned, hoping someone out there needed to hear it. Trust is the heart of every relationship. When it breaks, you have the right to choose the path that brings you back to peace. She closed her eyes for a moment, letting the wind wrap gently around her. Then, she opened them again, feeling lighter. Before standing up, she thought of the people who might hear her story and asked quietly, as if speaking to each of them, "If it were you, would you forgive, or would you walk away?" And with a final deep breath, she stepped off the bench, ready for whatever came next. Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to follow the channel for more emotional English listening stories.